Reading, gazing into the mirror of life. The courage of John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath. Do you think of reading as an outdated, boring activity? Or perhaps, do you feel you don't have the time to sit down with a single book amidst your busy daily life? We often assume that knowledge and refinement are only for those with formal education or the elite. Yet knowledge and culture are not distant concepts. They are the power to understand the world around us, empathize with others' lives, and enrich our own lives. And one of the most powerful and accessible ways to gain this power is through reading. Today, I want to introduce you to John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, a Nobel Prize-winning novel. While this book is set against the backdrop of the 1930s American Great Depression and the Dust Bowl, its message transcends time and continues to resonate deeply with us today. Don't worry if you hesitate to read it, thinking, "I'm not a big reader." Through this article, I will explain in a simple and friendly manner what kind of story The Grapes of Wrath is, why it is worth reading, and the meaningful questions it poses to our lives. 1. A time of despair, a wasteland, and people seeking hope. The Grapes of Wrath is set against the catastrophic historical backdrop of the Dust Bowl in the central U.S., particularly Oklahoma, and the Great Depression. The Dust Bowl was an environmental disaster caused by reckless farming practices that stripped the soil and led to massive dust storms that ruined farmland for years. Compounded by the economic crisis, countless farmers lost their livelihoods and were suddenly left destitute and homeless. The novel centers on the Joad family, who also experienced this devastation in Oklahoma. Due to severe droughts, sandstorms, and bank exploitation, they lost their land. Inspired by a flyer promising jobs in California, they loaded their entire possessions onto an old truck and embarked on a long journey toward the promised land of California. This journey was anything but easy. The Route 66, with many others seeking the same dream, became a path full of suffering and despair. The elderly died on the way, children fell ill and collapsed, and vulnerable people were exploited for cheap labor or forced to endure harsh conditions in crowded camps. When the Joads finally arrived in California, however, the dream turned into a harsh reality. It was not a land flowing with milk and honey, but a place filled with capitalist greed, endless competition, and local prejudice against migrants. Farm owners took advantage of migrants' desperation, offering pitiful wages and arbitrarily firing workers when jobs were plentiful. The Joad family constantly wandered, struggling to survive in deplorable conditions while trying to support their family. Along the way, Tom Joad, influenced by his friend Jim Casey, a former preacher, began to understand the injustice of society and the meaning of living together rather than just surviving. The novel ends tragically but also highlights the resilience of human life and the hope in solidarity. Amidst a devastating flood, after losing everything and facing a miscarriage, the youngest daughter, Rose of Sharon, sacrifices her own milk to save a starving old man. This moment goes beyond physical survival, symbolizing profound empathy and the sharing of life itself, leaving a lasting impression. 2. The profound questions posed by The Grapes of Wrath. The Grapes of Wrath is not merely a story of the 1930s American tragedy. It transcends time to raise profound questions about the essence of humanity, structural societal issues, and how we should live our lives. Even if you haven't read the book, consider these reflections to understand its relevance to our lives today. 2.1. Human dignity and the value of existence is I also we. The Joad family suffers from terrible poverty and humiliation. They lose their land, their family members, and are even mocked as Okies, a derogatory term for Oklahoma migrants. Yet, they never abandon their human dignity. Ma Joad, in particular, shows unwavering determination to protect her family and uphold their dignity and unity amid adversity. Jim Casey's philosophy is a central message of the novel. He realizes that every person is part of a single, universal soul, and one person's suffering is the suffering of all. Tom Joad, influenced by Casey, shifts from focusing solely on personal survival to understanding that individual suffering stems from systemic social issues and that no one can change them alone. His declaration, "A hungry man is my brother," shows how personal suffering can expand into universal human suffering. Backhand index pointing right questions for us in today's society. How much do we empathize with others' pain? In an era of deepening wealth inequality and individualism, are we living purely for ourselves? Do we dismiss the suffering of homeless people, refugees, or economically disadvantaged neighbors as just their problem? This book reminds us that human dignity does not depend on wealth or class, and that a sense of solidarity, recognizing we are all one, is essential. 2.2 Inequality and the Shadow of Capitalism, the Unending Cycle of Exploitation. The Grapes of Wrath starkly reveals the dark side of capitalism. Landowners exploit migrant laborers' desperation, denying them humane conditions. Workers endure starvation wages and face immediate dismissal for any complaint. To further depress wages, landowners deliberately bring in more migrants, intensifying competition. This exploitation is not limited to a few corrupt individuals but is rooted in the systemic flaws of capitalism. The novel exposes how banks and corporations seize land, dictate prices unilaterally, and trample the lives of the poor for the benefit of the few. Labeling migrants as Okies and excluding them from communities illustrates how prejudice and hatred toward the vulnerable easily spread. Backhand index pointing right questions for us how different is the 1930s American landscape from today's society. Are we still forcing non-regular workers to sacrifice for the sake of economic efficiency? Are there not issues with SMEs and self-employed individuals suffering from corporate misconduct? This book warns that inequality, labor exploitation, and discrimination against the vulnerable are not confined to history but are persistent dangers in capitalist societies. We must understand the impact of the social system on individual lives and begin to think about how to reduce inequality. 2.3 The Power of Solidarity and Community Hope Born from Despair. The Jode family's journey is a lonely and difficult struggle, but they encounter people who reach out to them along the way. In migrant camps, strangers share food, care for the sick, and share in each other's sorrow, showing that true power lies in solidarity. The Weed Patch Camp, operated by the government, exemplifies an ideal community where migrants set their own rules, help one another, and strive to preserve human dignity. Here, they experience for a brief moment a human life they create themselves. The novel suggests that anger is not merely destructive, it can be a powerful motive to fight injustice and build a better world. When individual despair unites into a collective grape of wrath, it can drive social change. Tom Joad's final message, with one, we can do nothing. But with all, everything can change, dramatically highlights the strength of solidarity. Backhand index pointing right questions for us how much do we truly live together with our neighbors? In today's fast-paced society, where we may not even know our neighbors, have we forgotten the word community? This book shows that no individual is strong enough alone to overcome adversity. In the face of global challenges like pandemics, natural disasters, and economic crises, we must remember that hope can only be found by holding hands with others. In difficult times, it is not me but we that we need. 2.4 The endless interplay of hope and despair. Life goes on regardless. While The Grapes of Wrath honestly depicts a bleak reality, it also praises the indomitable vitality of humans who never give up. The Jode family continues to seek hope, face despair, and rise again. Even when they lose everything, they strive to uphold the love of family and human dignity. Rose of Sharon's noble act at the end symbolizes the triumph of life and human love over all despair. It is not merely about saving a life physically but highlights the greatness of the human spirit that ignites hope in the darkest times. Backhand index pointing right questions for us. Our lives, too, sometimes face unforeseen trials and despair. We often surrender or break down in the face of failure and defeat. This book shows that even when life is painful and unfair, humans have the resilience and hope to overcome and rise again. When we are going through tough times, this book can offer a powerful comfort and courage. Life continues despite the obstacles. 3. Why read The Grapes of Wrath now? The value of reading. John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath is over 80 years old. Yet the message it carries is surprisingly deeply relevant to our lives and society today. First, it enhances empathy. Reading is experiencing others' lives indirectly. By feeling the Joad family's pain and hope, we reflect on the suffering of our neighbors, who may live very different lives. Such empathy broadens our understanding of the world and reduces prejudice. Second, it widens our perspective. The Grapes of Wrath shows how individual misfortune is not merely a personal issue but can stem from social structures and systems. Through this novel, we understand that problems like wealth inequality, labor exploitation, and social exclusion are not confined to the past but persist in various forms today. This insight encourages us to view the world critically and think about how to build a better society. Third, it reveals the greatness of the human spirit. The Joad family's journey, maintaining dignity and solidarity despite despair, deeply moves and inspires us. This book reminds us that humans are strong enough to endure even the harshest situations through love, solidarity, and hope. Today, we live through economic hardships, climate change, deepening inequality, and ongoing social conflicts. The Grapes of Wrath shows these issues are not new and offers insights from the past to overcome current challenges. It conveys a message of hope we can embrace each other, resist injustice, and create a better future. 4. Conclusion: the power of one book, the courage to change life. How do you feel now, readers? The Grapes of Wrath is more than just a novel. It is a grand story encompassing the pain and beauty of life, despair and hope, and the strength of the human spirit. While this article cannot convey all the content of the book, I hope it has planted a small seed of curiosity in your heart. We live in a flood of information, but true knowledge and refinement go beyond merely accumulating facts. They involve understanding the world deeply and forming our own values. Reading is key to this process. You may feel reading is difficult at first. But try reading a classic like The Grapes of Wrath. It might seem unfamiliar or challenging at first, but as you turn the pages, you will encounter a completely different world and reflect on your own life through the lives of those within it. The Grapes of Wrath is a powerful book that reveals the greatness of human existence in the midst of tragedy, encourages profound reflection on societal inequality, and ultimately delivers a message of solidarity and hope. I sincerely hope this book opens the door to your knowledge and refinement, deepens your understanding of the world, and gives you the courage to live a richer life. I have no doubt that a single book can change your life.